let's start off with the main event. Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar, last man standing match for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. That is a mouthful. With the big focus on Theory to get involved here. So, first of all, over or under 15 minutes for the match?
For the match itself without the Theory stuff, I'm going to say under.
Under. Okay. Yeah.
What was our last one?
They did. I looked it up today. The Mania match was just over 12.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say under.
It's low on the WWE side for a last man standing match, but
true.
But Brock, dude, he has not done like more than say 15 minutes since that Rumble years ago when Drew eliminated him, and he was in first and he just ran through everybody. Like he's in like compact matches. That seems to be the formula of just go, big move, and go for just maximum impact, and we're not going long.
Yeah, this is an interesting, I guess, predicament here, because what is the shortest last man standing match that there's been? I wonder. I'm not asking you for that info, but like it's hard for me to think of that they would be less than 15 minutes minimum, right? So
how have none of the like comedy shows on a WrestleMania weekend, how has no one ever done a first man standing match?
So you just stay down.
They start on their feet. They start on their backs, and they're like, kick fighting, and
you just have a rolling around match.
First person to their feet wins. You could just do it. That should be Bloodsport.
That is a brilliant idea. That I
can't believe it hasn't been done yet.
Joey Janela should be booking.
Orange Cassidy versus Josh Barnett, first man standing match.
Ooh, interesting. That is a wonderful idea.
But back to the main event.
No, it's an interesting predicament. How do they tell a compelling last man standing match story if without Brock Lesnar going over 15 minutes? Can Brock Lesnar go over 15 minutes, or do they go all out? Did they bring in like cars? Did they bring in like every single weapon to really make it convincing that these guys?
I mean, the whole selling feature of this is having as physical a match as possible, so that the winner and the loser are destroyed at the end of this, so that you have the Money in the Bank tease at the end of this whole thing. So I think at the very least you have to tease the cash in, whether or not you go through with it. So I think that's a given, that Theory runs down, and maybe you go ahead and do the cash in.
It's possible, but then, man, being left with... So you would be then left with Drew McIntyre versus Austin Theory for that Clash at the Castle show, which they can do.
I'm not saying necessarily Theory wins this. I'm just saying if they want to just go ahead and do this. I would not, personally. I think that Reigns should just win this, and Theory's plan gets thwarted, and maybe you're planting the seed down the road of Heyman being with Theory, because I don't see that as a wild idea of Heyman eventually being with this guy. But like Roman and Drew would be my main event for Wales, not Theory and Drew.
It would be for me too, especially considering that he's on the poster. The two of them are on the poster. Not that matters, but it's certainly more attractive than Theory being involved with any combination. Maybe even more attractive. Well, whatever. Brock versus... Anyway, so failed cash-in is what you're expecting.
I think he teases the cash-in without actually doing it. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go about this whole thing, but I think Theory at least getting out there, and like I think the most effective thing long term would be, it's almost left like, was Paul Heyman, is he like working as like a double agent here? And Reigns goes back to questioning Paul Heyman's loyalty, which was the whole basis of this Brock feud. And now it's, okay, I've been champion 700 days, and here's the young Theory. Is he just looking to hitch his wagon to the next big star? And that's how you're kind of left here. Like, was Heyman setting this whole thing in motion? And you're just left with that. And that could be something that it could be something you play out over weeks.
Yeah, it's something they set up starting today, with Heyman talking to Theory in the back. I just don't know how interested I am in them doing that again after, having Heyman do it pretty much every single time. But maybe that's just the nature of the character. He always turns on the person that he's with. But I would just hate to see this, bloodline association end. But maybe it's run its course.
I think you're getting to that point where, I mean, I don't see the title changing here, but I think between the Theory elevation, this Drew match, that you're starting to look at, like, how are we going to wrap this title reign up? Because you've sort of gone as far as you can go with it. The only excuse I could see of them continuing it is if they believe the person to dethrone him should be Cody, and you extend this to Mania next year.
Drew Roman can win it back before then.
Exactly. I don't think you need this uninterrupted reign to get to that big moment with Cody. And that's, to me, a big reason of why you would consider doing Drew next month. Are we completely looking at Brock here as just, he is here, he is filling the spot that was to be occupied by Randy Orton, he's not winning, and if anything, like, maybe he's just going to disappear after this until Saudi Arabia in the fall or something like that? Maybe that's when we see Brock again.
I think anything is likely at this point. I feel like he sign on for more dates. So, if they wanted him to stick around, then I think it's still very possible. But I still also feel like Roman versus Drew is the long-term story that they've been building. So I don't know if they should be, just switching it to Brock Lesnar. I don't even know if it's necessarily that much more of an attractive match. But I wouldn't necessarily count out Brock sticking around.
Last thing on this, how about the belts being separated at some point? Do you think that this works? Just keep the belts together for now? Because this is probably longer than most assumed the belts would be consolidated.
Right. So what do you think they use here to get that result? Some sort of disputed finish?
I guess, like, you do have that option of, I don't know how you would get you could have both guys down and Theory running in to pin, say, Brock. Like, what happens there? Actually, that wouldn't make sense. So he would.
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you cash in? I guess you have to do it after the match. Of how they get around this. It gets very confusing at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. You can have, like, maybe a three-way pinfall, perhaps, where Roman and Theory are both considered winners over Brock Lesnar, potentially. They can do whatever they want.
Well, that's it. It's like we're not following any kind of guideline. It's like whatever gets us to the destination is what we will do. I guess it's just coming up with a creative way to split those titles, and you have, like, the idea of Theory having one of the titles and then Roman or Drew having the other. Like, that to me kind of serves both functions of where you want to go. I can't say I'm all that negative on this idea of just having the one champion. I know there are complaints about Roman doing, like, less dates, but to me, this title has not meant this much in years than it does now.
I don't dislike it either.
It's like there is the undisputed top guy. There is no 1A, 1B. It is the clear-cut number one guy, and whoever beats him, that'll be a big deal when they get there.
Yeah, the problem is just not having the belt at all around on the TV because these guys are on limited schedules. That's the big negative. Not having any sort of champion, not having any sort of lead principal guy on the show for half of the shows. So, is that enough of a reason? Like, they've already held it off this long. Like, do they split it right away? Maybe not yet.
I'd hold off on that, but I think eventually you get there. Okay, Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship.
Yeah. So this one is a rematch from SummerSlam. I mean, really just
and Mania.
And Mania. Sorry, that is correct. Yeah. So this one, I think Belair will retain, and she already kind of had her redemption story at WrestleMania, but this one being directly tied to SummerSlam might be more of a way to complete that. So,
or she loses and SummerSlam is Bianca's Achilles heel.
They can tell that story too. Yeah. And then maybe look towards next year for her to try again. But I feel like Bianca will retain.
I think that's probably the most likely outcome here. I think that Bianca is doing great in the role, and I think Becky can sustain the loss. I don't think you need to necessarily go back to Becky this early, but I'm looking forward to this match. I think it should be one of the better ones on the show. The Usos and the Street Profits.
The future opponents for the championship.
For Bianca, they've kind of teased Alexa Bliss coming out of SummerSlam, and beyond that, Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, right. Those two.
The Usos and the Street Profits with Jeff Jarrett as the special guest referee. Hopefully they can be within striking distance of what they did at Money in the Bank, because that match, kind of like nothing special the first half, the last half is what everyone remembers of that match, and it built and was tremendous in the end. So in this one, could you see this being the wrap-up, and could the Street Profits finally win the titles, or is this their final failure together? Because I think that's kind of where they're at. I think they either win the titles, or you start to look at the idea of splitting these two up if they come up short yet again.
Could be that finally, after what they were teasing heading into Money in the Bank, and then getting no hint of it whatsoever in the time afterwards. It could be that they're waiting for for them to lose so that they can finally start telling that breakup story. I think the Usos retain. I think as long as Roman is champion, I think they'll want that whole dominant faction in place. And so I don't think the Profits will win.
Does Jeff Jarrett get the biggest pop of the entrances here?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, he's a hometown guy, but like this,
you know what?
That much to Nashville? I wonder.
I don't think, like, just looking at, where they were, it's like, it's not like Jeff Jarrett is like moving tickets for this as a referee, that I almost feel like if they had just left this as like a mystery referee to come call it down the middle, at bet it's like you would get a big pop if it's Jeff Jarrett coming out.
You would get a big pop. You would also get a ton of disappointment from people tuning into the paper.
Maybe because it's like the novelty's off. Because when he was in the Rumble that year as the surprise, like that was like a genuine like pop because people were surprised. I guess
he was one of several though, in a
but now
role.
He's been appearing so many times that he's kind of like that. Okay, he's indoctrinated in the WWE programming universe.
Even beyond that, like I don't know if Jarrett is necessarily like, oh my God, what a big name! Like, because when you tease, like we know this from AEW, when you tease,
you're right.
People would be thinking.
So there was almost no purpose to this. Let's be honest. Like, okay.
I wonder if there was an original bigger name.
The Mysterios against the Judgment Day, no DQ match. I guess the question here is if Edge gets involved in any way, if those vignettes pay off here, or they save that for television, or because without it, this is just a straight up like rematch from Monday with the no DQ step.
That's right. Yeah. I imagine Rhea Ripley will be around and will get involved. She seems to be like, the upper hand for the group and
the muscle.
The muscle. So yeah, maybe I think Edge was expected to show up on Wednesday or on Monday, but didn't. So maybe they're saving it for Saturday. Do we also get any like further Eddie Guerrero, discussion? Because
I think it's indoctrinated that they have to work Eddie spots into all of these matches.
Does one of them wear the Halloween Havoc 97 gear?
Oh, I'll say no. I think that's going to be held down the road, or it'll never ever be referenced again. And you and I put way too much value into that gift as like some Easter egg for down the road. But I had not clued in on Dominik's transformation until you pointed it out. But that's it's hard not to notice that after it's pointed out. Pat McAfee against Happy Corbin. Are you looking at this as in terms of Pat McAfee's performance against Theory? Do you think that can be replicated here with Corbin? These are two guys that have like a real relationship that goes back years. So I think they're going to be going out there. And listen, Pat, anytime he's been put in these positions, it's been a big success, whether it's been in NXT or at Mania this year. So that's sort of the standard. And he's coming in here with an expectation.
He is, absolutely. I think that like the expectations are still relatively low for a Pat McAfee, because I think many still look at him as a celebrity first and foremost, and to see a celebrity pull off a Canadian destroyer or any sort of like move from the top rope is going to get people very excited. And he has that, just to kind of rely on to get him through the match. And I think the crowd response will be great, as the crowd response has been for all their segments on TV. The best thing I think they've done is to keep Pat McAfee out of the ring for all this time, because his appearances in ring doing those moves is still going to be very much a novelty. Will it be as good as the Theory match? I think the crowd will help them get it there. I think Corbin is a very easy to hate heel. They'll come up with plenty of spots that I think will be enough to like generate a good amount of sympathy for Pat McAfee. So I think they'll have a very good match. You can argue that like Baron Corbin is more hateable than Austin Theory, and in ring I think he's at least competent, if not, according to WWE, who seem to be pushing him always, more than competent. So I think they'll have a good match.
It's not going to be worse than Pat McAfee against Vince McMahon.
No, it won't. Nope.
That might be Vince McMahon's last award he gets at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It will be a candidate. Bobby Lashley against Theory for the United States title. I bet you there are people listening that had no idea this was happening. I don't think Lashley was even on TV this past Monday. This one just feels ice cold to me. Maybe the reactions will be different with the actual match itself. But this just feels like Theory's got a million things going on, and this would be at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. The whole story is that Theory, his whole justification for even wanting this match is that he wants to be the first person to have the US and the Undisputed Championship at the same time.
Sure.
So
he should just 100% lose this match, and it's the idea that he's coming back later in the night, and if he were to come out with the championship, great, you now have yet another challenger set up for Theory. Like there's no reason for Theory to win this early in the show.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what they're going to be setting up for. I mean, we know if you have a Money in the Bank briefcase, you can take any amount of losses up until the point that you cash in, because people won't think about it afterwards. So they're using him up all the way until potentially the moment where he might cash in.
There should be a story where Heyman gets to Lashley to take out Theory.
Okay. Yeah.
Then he's not around to cash in.
But then what do you owe Bobby Lashley? What's Bobby Lashley's incentive? You mean Heyman just pairs up with Lashley?
No, they could promise him, I don't know what
a nice meal.
Sure.
Steak.
Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's title. I see a good chance of a title change here with Rousey.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. As a way to make Ronda Rousey heel, I think it's a good way. It's going to piss a lot of people off, and that's exactly the type of response that they want. Of course, again, the only issue being that we hope that they finish the story with Liv Morgan and that they don't change course. But as a way to kick off a Liv Morgan big Royal Rumble or WrestleMania championship win, I like it.
And Logan Paul against The Miz. So I'm optimistic about Pat McAfee and Happy Corbin. I'm the opposite on this one. I think the build has been really rough, mainly for Logan Paul. I think The Miz has done what he can in these segments, but one person does not make this program. And I think this is one where I don't even know if it's like the audience is going to boo Logan Paul more than they're going to be checked out, because they're not going to be behind The Miz, and they're definitely not going to be into Logan Paul. So they're going to be left to just try and impress with the match. And I don't see them having a great singles match on their own to win over a crowd that I think is going to be indifferent to this.
I think, Logan will have a lot of the similar advantages that like Pat McAfee will have, in that it'll just be a novelty to see him like pull off a leapfrog, drop down, like to see him just do any sort of professional wrestling will get much of the audience's interest. But you're absolutely right. The heel babyface dynamics are all messed up in this, and I have no doubt that this audience will boo Logan Paul. And I have to imagine that they're preparing for that too. So like, what sort of segments are they planning ahead of time? What sort of promos are they going to have Miz cut to perhaps steer the crowd in a different direction? Is AJ Styles going to, come out and try to get the crowd on Logan's side? Perhaps
they'll turn on AJ if he's siding with Logan Paul. Like, you do have that option to get Ciampa and AJ involved here. Honestly, if this was a tag match, I think like at least you would have like other people involved that to take away, but and maybe they'll get creative, because you're right, they're not going into this one blind. Like you have to. This is not coming out of left field. This is one though. I will see. This is one that's going to take a lot of a well thought out plan. That it's not a failure.
And who wins?
Logan Paul.
I think The Miz.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think Logan Paul could afford the loss. I mean, The Miz is a heel; he could cheat the win.
They
He's
will
the guy
cheer
who
that will get like a big babyface pop if he beats Logan Paul.
depends, honestly. Like honestly, depends on the layout of the match and how good of a job they do of steering the audience towards trying to cheer for Logan Paul. But Miz is also the character that is going to have to stick around. Logan Paul, we know he signed a full-time contract, but we probably all don't expect him to show up all that often.
Will Jake Paul be at this show?
Well, he's fighting next week, isn't he?
Next weekend.
So I could see him being there. I mean, it's a stadium show. It's a big moment for his brother. It's a way to promote his boxing match. So I could see him joining the kickoff panel.
Which is going to need promotion. So, it wouldn't be stunning. All right, that is SummerSlam Saturday night. We will be live immediately after the show on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel. So go on over youtube.com/postwrestling, subscribe, and then you will be notified as soon as we are going live.